Alright, this is a video lesson over sex-linked traits, which is our last part of Unit 15. You should have the half sheet of paper, copied notes to fill in as we go along with the video. So fill in those notes as I fill them in on the screen, and make sure you write anything extra that I write down as well. Also, don't forget that you have to submit the question at the end of the video in order to receive full credit for your notes, and your notes must be glued into your journal. Alright, let's begin. So, when I'm talking about a sex-linked trait, I'm referring to a trait that is coded for on the X chromosome, right? And the X chromosome, everyone has one, and some of us actually have more than one. So, a sex-linked trait, I want you to star or highlight this in your notes, is one that is, again, found on the X chromosome only, okay? So let's think back. We remember that every human has 46 chromosomes. We talked about this when we talked about meiosis. And so if we have 46 chromosomes, that's going to equal to 23 pairs, okay? Remember, in those pairs, you have one chromosome from mom, one chromosome from dad. And those are homologous chromosomes, okay? That should ring a bell. So the first 22 pairs that we have of our chromosomes are called autosomes. Okay, and these are going to contain our genetic information that makes up the basic traits of who you are. So this is going to tell us what color eyes you're going to have, how tall you're going to be, what color hair you're going to have. Those types of things are going to be on these first 22 pairs of chromosomes. Okay, so the last pair of chromosomes are the sex chromosomes. Okay, and so our 23rd pair or the last pair is going to tell us the sex of the person. So either male or female. If you are a female, you are going to have the chromosomes XX. So your last pair of chromosomes are going to be XX, okay, 2 X's. If you are a male, you're going to be XY. So the presence of the Y chromosome makes you a male, right? Of the Y chromosome, okay, makes you a male. If you don't have a Y chromosome, you are a female. So females are XX, males are XY. You need to make sure you memorize that. So when we are completing a cross for a sex-linked trait, we have to always, always, always include the X and the Y, okay? Because it's going to matter, we've taken consideration, what the sex of the offspring is going to be. Okay, so because of this, because of females having 2 X's and males having an X and a Y, this means that only females can be carriers of a sex-linked trait because they have 2 X chromosomes. And this will make a little more sense whenever we work our example. So for example, hemophilia is a sex-linked genetic disorder which prevents blood from clotting correctly. Okay, so if you have hemophilia and you get cut, you can bleed uncontrollably, so it can be fatal if it's not treated. So the normal phenotype is dominant over the hemophilia phenotype. So that means having hemophilia is a recessive trait. So the first thing I want us to do is practice writing some genotypes for each phenotype. It is very important that you pay close attention to the notation that I'm going to be using to write each of these genotypes. So in a normal female, we know, first of all, the key word is female. So since it's female, we already know we're going to have XX. That's what we're going to start with. XX. Okay, now since we are doing hemophilia, we're going to use H's. So capital H represents normal. So if it's a normal female who is not a carrier, that means she has to have a capital H and a capital H on both of her X's. Remember I said that these traits are only on the X chromosomes. Now, if the female, we have a carrier female, we know it's a female, so we're going to write XX. If she is a carrier, that means she's going to have one dominant allele, and the other one's going to be recessive. Okay, so this female will not actually have hemophilia, okay, because she has a normal dominant gene that's going to beat the hemophilia one, but she is actually a carrier. She has the recessive one, it's just not being expressed. So that means she's carrying this trait and can pass it on to her children. Okay, now a female who has hemophilia, she's going to be X little h, X little h. Since hemophilia is recessive, we have to have it on both X's in order for the female to actually have the disease. Okay? Alright, so those are our three options for females. For males, we can have a normal male. It's going to be XY. And for him to be normal, that means he has to have the normal non-hemophilia gene. So he's going to have a capital H on his X. Now, again, sex-linked traits are only on the X chromosome. So we do not write anything on the Y. Okay, the Y is just there because it's a boy. If it's a male with hemophilia, he's going to have a little h on his X and a Y, okay, because he has hemophilia. So notice that in the males, we only have two options. Either they're going to be normal or they are going to be they're going to have a hemophilia disease. Okay, so there is no carrier in the male because they only have the one X chromosome. So whoever they get the X from is what's going to be expressed. Now keep in mind, let's talk about where that X is coming from. So we talked about on the previous slide that that XX is female and XY is male. So if you think about it, females, the mom, she always gives an X, right? She's always giving an X because that's all she has to get. Now, the male, he can give either an X or a Y. So because of this means that the male determines the sex of the offspring. So whether a sperm cell with an X chromosome fertilizes the egg, we're going to get a female. If a sperm cell with a Y chromosome fertilizes the egg, then we're going to get a male. Okay, so the male determines the sex of the offspring because he has both an X and a Y. Okay, so let's move on now and work a problem. If a woman who is a carrier marries a man who is normal, what is the chance they will have a son who has hemophilia? So let's first figure out the genotypes of the parents. So the mom, she is a carrier. So we know she's going to be XX because she's the mom. And if she's a carrier, we know she has to be heterozygous. And she's carrying that recessive trait, okay? Even though she doesn't have hemophilia, she's still carrying it and can pass it on. It says she marries a man who is normal. So we're going to cross these two. So her husband, he is XY, and on his X, he's going to have a capital H because he's normal and does not have hemophilia. Alright, so now we're simply going to do our Punnett square to see the chance that they will have a son with hemophilia. So when we do our Punnett square, we're doing it the same we've always done it. We have X big H, X little h, X big H, Y. And we are just going to fill it in just like we have before, but now we're just adding in the X's and the Y's to account for the sex of the offspring. Now I want to point out that here you can see that this gives us a 50% chance of having a girl, getting offspring with that are XX, and a 50% chance of having boys or offspring that are XY. Okay, so there's a 50-50 chance of having a boy or a girl. Right, but let's look at the H's and see what the chances they will have a son with hemophilia. So we know to be a son, you have to have the genotype. We're looking for XY. Okay, and if we're so that's to be a boy. And if he has hemophilia, we know on his X he has to have a little h. And we can look closely here and see that this last box here meets that criteria. So that means we're going to have a 25% chance of having a son who has hemophilia. Okay? Alright, let's work one last example and then you'll have some practice to do on your own. So now let's work another one. If a woman who has hemophilia marries a man who is normal, what is the chance they will have a child with hemophilia, and will it be a daughter or a son? So we have a woman who has hemophilia. So if she has hemophilia, that means she's going to be X little h, X little h. Okay, because for a woman to have it, remember, she has to inherit it on both X chromosomes. Right? We're going to cross that with a man who is normal. So he's going to have to be X big H and then a Y. So that means he's normal, doesn't have hemophilia, so he has a big A, a dominant H on his X chromosome. So let's set up our Punnett square and work this out. Okay, and when we fill in our Punnett square, we fill it in just like we always have. And we're looking for the chance of a child with hemophilia. So to have hemophilia, that means either you can be a female who's X little h, or a male who's XH little y. So let's look at our boxes and see if we see any of those that meet that criteria. Are there any in our females that are going to have hemophilia? No, because none of our female offspring have X little h, Let's look at the male offspring. Is there a chance that any of our male offspring are going to have hemophilia? Do any of them have X little hy? And the answer is yes. Both of them have X little hy. So this means there is a 2 out of 4 chance, or a 50% chance of having a child with hemophilia, and it's going to be a son. Okay, so 50% chance, and that child will be a son. Right, so this is the end of the notes. You should have everything filled in and the examples worked out. Glue this paper in your journal. Make sure you've submitted the question at the end of the video. And then come up, show me your notes so that I can check them off and get your next assignment.